At a few points during the course, we've mentioned nested types briefly, and I've always said that's something we would talk about later. Well, later is now. Now, a nested type is simply a case where you have a type that's declared within another type. So you can have classes that are declared within other classes or within an interface. You can also have interfaces that are declared within classes or a different interface. When you nest one type inside of another, the nested type is actually a member of its enclosing type. So what that means is that the nested type actually has visibility of private members of its enclosing type. Also, as a member, it can have all the member access modifiers. All right, so a nested class can of course be public or a package private just as a top level class, but you can also have a nested class that is protected, meaning that it would only be accessible by classes that inherit from its enclosing class. Or it can even be private, so you can have a class that's only visible to the class in which it's contained. When we work with nested types, there's generally two ways we work with them. In one case, we're really using them for structure and scoping. And in this case, there's no special relationship between instances of the nested class and instances of the enclosing class. It's really because you want to make the type only usable in certain scenarios, or you want to structure its naming relative to another class. So this happens when you have what's called a static nested class, or if you put a class inside of an interface, or if you have a nested interface. Right, to see what this looks like, remember we have our passenger class here, and one of the things we did with passengers is we had a rewards program. Now the rewards program relied on two values: what a person's level was in the rewards program and how long they'd been a member of the program. And this is a case where it takes two values to represent a single concept. And oftentimes when we have that scenario, we go ahead and wrap that up in a class. So we could go off and create a rewards program class. But this is rewards programs as it applies to a passenger. What if we had a different rewards program as it applied to crew members? Well, we could start naming one like passenger rewards program, another one crew member rewards program, or we could have a reward program class that we nest inside of passenger. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll wrap up those two values inside of our reward program class. So reward program is the nested class, passenger is the enclosing class. Reward program is marked as static, which means again we're using it for structure and scoping. As a class, it can do all the things classes are allowed to do, so it can have methods inside of it. So we have a getter and a setter for member level, and a getter and a setter for member days. Now all we've done at this point is declare the reward program class. There's no instance of it yet. So we're going to do inside of our passenger class, we'll add a field of type reward program that we'll call reward program. Now it's still a reference type, so we need to go ahead and new it up. So we'll new up an instance of it. Now we've marked reward program as private in terms of the field, but notice our reward program class is public. So you can't access the field directly, so we'll go ahead and put a getter around that as well. Okay, so now we have our reward program class that's nested inside of our passenger class. Let's see how this affects our code when we use it. So let's go up here, and we'll go ahead and create an instance of a passenger. We'll call him Steve. And if we want to go ahead and set up his reward program information, it's just like working with any other field that's based on a class. We have our Steve variable. We call getRewardProgram to actually get a reference to his reward program information. And then we just call methods on it. So we can set his level to 3, and we'll go ahead and set his member days to 180. So really there was nothing different there. But now remember we said that we declared reward program as a public nested class. So it's usable outside of the passenger class. So we can actually create variables and instances of that reward program outside of the passenger class. So let's go ahead and create a variable here, call it Platinum. But you notice the name of the class. The class's name is passenger.rewardProgram, right? The enclosing class dot the nested class. And when we new it up, we use the class name. So we go ahead and new up an instance of passenger.rewardProgram. So you see how we've got a structured name here so that the reward program name is qualified by the passenger class. If we had a different reward program for crew members, we can nest that inside of the crew member class. Then its name would be qualified by the crew member class. So we can go ahead and use this Platinum variable. Right, so we'll go ahead and set the level to 3. So we're saying now that this variable Platinum represents a reward program at the Platinum level. So we can use all this stuff just as we do any other bit of our code. So I want to do a test. I can say, hey, Steve, get the reward program. What's its level? Well, if its level equals the level in Platinum, then we know that Steve is Platinum. So again, this is a case of using nested classes as a mechanism for providing structure and scoping. Right? Reward program is a nested class that's marked as static, so its name was scoped within the passenger class. In the next clip, we'll see how things differ if we nest a class and do not mark it as static.